I'm Annette McCoy, and you're watching Angel Heart Radio. With me today is Janet Hickox. And I'm fascinated, Janet, because it's the 30th of November for you and the 1st of December for me.
Happy December.
Yes, the Christmas vibes are certainly here, and I saw that in my travels as well. It's amazing how we seem to get, well, for me, it seems as though it starts earlier every year. The decorations were well and truly up sort of from the start of November.
Well, my daughter actually put up her Christmas tree the day after Halloween.
Very nice.
I'm like, why? Why? Why do you do that? It's beautiful, sure, but she wanted to feel comfort. And somehow that equates to comfort for her. So
Wow.
having her Christmas tree up early was a good thing. Now my other daughter has hers up too. I have not yet done that because it's not December 1st yet.
Right. I always thought, let's do it on December the 1st, but overseas I noticed it was 35 days before
Oh,
celebrations started. And I know one of my daughter-in-laws had her tree up a couple of weeks ago, I think. So
yeah.
it's a lovely, lovely time of the year, and I'm trusting that our audience feels that too. Without
I've already got my Christmas shopping done. That was
Oh,
awesome. I have one more present to buy, just one more, and then I'm
well
done.
done.
I like
Well,
having that part done, um, but I have not decorated one little thing. I still have a pumpkin out on my front porch, but it's still November.
that's right. You've got another 24 hours.
I got another, well, some hours.
Oh.
Get away with murder here.
I do trust that people find Christmas exciting. And if it doesn't float your boat, then try and take the pressure off yourself. Are we going to be covering something like that today, Janet? Is that
We're
coming
good.
to?
We have a lot to talk about, but not a lot to talk about. So the
Ah,
themes, the themes actually for December are, um, quieter than they've been for November, and especially say like October, where I almost literally felt out of breath almost every day, trying to break down what was happening and what things were going on. Now, it's not to say that December doesn't have action, but its major theme, if I step back and just look in at the theme for the month, has much more to do with blessings, has much more to do with gratitude, and has a sort of forgive the old story kind of energy associated with it, thanks to the nodes shifting on, let's see, it was Sunday, my days, the 27th, my calendar. So would have been your Monday. And,
right.
them having moved out of one gate and into another. And so that kind of sets the tone for us all the way through the end of January. And if that tone is blessings, then December is right there absorbing it all. And maybe, giving us all the opportunity to absorb it and then share it with others.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Now, Kamal is saying aloha, Janet and Angel Heart Radio from Pakistan.
Hello, Kamal. It's good to see you or hear you
Yeah.
or know you're out there. Oh,
Oh, the joys of globality. I'm just making that word up. The fact that
that's a
we can
great word, globality, globalness.
globality. Yes.
Yeah,
If any
globality.
if anybody's listening or watching us on any other area, if you come over to Angel Heart Radio Facebook page, like Kamal and Sarah, you can make comments, and we love the comments. So
Yeah, you can make
feel
comments
free.
and you can ask questions, and we like it that way. Interaction, interconnectedness.
That's exactly right. Yes. And
Yeah.
especially when you like to share where you are in the world, that makes us even happier. It's amazing how far these shows travel. And I
Oh,
know,
definitely.
Janet, your audience for your own regular show is very extensive.
Yeah, timing wise, I don't pick up many that early in the morning watching from, say, Australia or New Zealand, but I do pick up a lot of European nations watching at that time. So it's the whole of the US plus Europe. And then Kamal, he's in Pakistan. He's often joining us too. And I don't know what time it is there when he's joining us, but oh my gosh, it's got to be later in his day for sure.
Right.
And yeah, so but that's the nature of the technology we have now. We're so global or globalists or globality that,
Exactly.
we could be meeting like you and I. I mean, you're in Australia for goodness sake, and I'm all the way on the west coast of the USA. We are an entire ocean apart. And
Absolutely.
it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like that though.
Almost two ends of the globe, really.
Yeah, we're in two different hemispheres of the world. You're in your
Mm,
morning, I'm in the later part of my afternoon. It is pretty amazing how that works. Now, the nice thing about it is that we have the way to connect. And when we talk about all of the different astrology components, they're all activated in both hemispheres at the same time, even though it might be your tomorrow and my today when it happens. But we're all being acting with these and being in kind of influenced by all of the different transits that happen. So it doesn't matter where you are in the globe, this is good information for helping you live your life, right? Knowing what's coming.
excellent. Now,
Yeah.
Sarah lives in Spokane, is it? Spokane Valley in Washington.
Yes, I didn't know which Sarah it was. There's a lot of different Sarahs. But I
Right.
was wondering if it was Sarah, the Sarah I know. And
Say Sarah Raven's Eye.
Sarah Raven's Eye. Yeah. So hello to you, Sarah. It's good to have you with us this afternoon. And today, there's a lot to talk about in terms of if I go on a day-to-day basis, but I kind of like the idea of getting a bigger perspective. So this morning, I actually was talking about some of what was going to come up for December. I saved the best for here, though, because that way, people had something different to hear. And one of the things that, almost escaped my attention this morning, the fact the first planet that does any really big deal is Neptune, and he turns direct on my Saturday, so December 3rd. So I
Right.
don't know what day December 3rd is for you. Happy
Same
your
day. Oh, but if it's your third, it would be our fourth.
Yes. Let's see. And it is going to be early, no, noontime in my part of the world. So anyway, anytime we have a planet that changes direction, it changes up the nature of the energy represented by that planet. And Neptune kind of shores up that energy of blessings that I just talked about, the bigger nodal or thematic expression for the month of December. Because when Neptune turns to direct motion, we have an opportunity to start expressing in the outer world things like unconditional love or love in general, bigger, kind of more platonic love, maybe, but love nonetheless. And then it also helps us to be expressing of that love to those around us, the people in our world. Neptune is kind of the higher order of Venus energy. So if Venus is love on the, relationship level, Neptune has that bigger love. So maybe we might think of the love that is the glue that holds the universe together, the love of the divine to the created, the creator to the creators, created. Um, so it really holds true that we have some really interesting energy that starts out the month that leads us more toward that loving energy. Now, unfortunately, there's always the downside of these planetary transits as well. And Neptune has a tendency to blur lines, like we don't see things. It's like looking through this thing, this, net, and you're trying to get a good view of what it is that's happening, and we haven't been able to see clearly because Neptune was in retrograde, but now that he's going to be moving forward, some things that remain hidden from us might be suddenly truth kind of biting us, or, coming and smacking us right up in the forehead.
Mm.
So for some people, that could be uncomfortable. For others, if we were following our intuition all along while Neptune's been in retrograde, then it shouldn't be any big surprises. Um, but you never know, right? Sometimes there are those surprises. And I meant to check to see before we came on air today what gate Neptune is sitting at. Pretty much know, but I want to just make sure. Yeah, he's at the gate 36 in our human design. So the gate 36 is an emotional or solar plexus energy, and it's the energy of crisis. So we might have people that are in spiritual crisis or who are questioning, reality. I meant to say this morning on my morning show, and I've totally forgot. There's a show out on Netflix right now called 1899. And it's a really, disaster looking flick, because on the cover, or, the picture, the main picture has like this maelstrom in the ocean and a ship that's sailing, like going off into this deep, what do they call those things? Whirlpool kind of
All
maelstroms
right.
in the ocean. So it looks like it's going to be something like, oh my, it's Poseidon adventure or something where, you know, people are going to die, but it isn't really about disasters. It's all about reality, or the nature of reality. And it's so Neptune, right? So Neptunian, to question reality. And I think there are a lot of people right now questioning reality, like what's
Mm.
real and what isn't real, and
Yep.
what constitutes reality anyway, right?
Mhm.
So there's this, hard to pin down kind of nature with Neptune energy, but when he moves direct, we begin to see maybe more of the truth, right? Or it dawns on us that this is what this is all about. I was telling my son today, oh my gosh, you've got to tell me that they're going to have answers at the end of the show, because right now there are no answers, right? Just
Mm.
more questions. And he goes,
Mm.
it's all answered in the end, Mom. And I'm like, okay, one more episode. I'll give it one more episode to get me those answers. Otherwise, because we're all on this quest for truth. Don't you kind of
Mm.
feel like you want to, we all get the feeling that there's some kind of significant thing that's been hidden from us. Something, and even our governments feel like they can't trust us with the truth. So there's always these lies and deceptions and things like that. And I think there's a growing feeling among human beings that, we just want the truth, right? We don't want to
Yes.
dance around the subjects anymore. And if you can tell me the truth, then I can handle whatever that might be. If you told me that this planet was all run by aliens, I would be okay with that, because it's better than wondering what the heck UFOs are,
Right.
or
Mm.
what the heck is going on in that respect. So I think that's a fine line that we're looking at in this month as well, is truth. We're going to There's another word that just came to my mind about that too, transparency. And that was one of the words that I really thought would come into bigger play for 2022 in general.
Mhm.
And it really didn't. It really didn't. I mean, there's still so many people out there obfuscating the truth,
Yes.
people in power that, are holding
Mm.
on by the skins of their little teeth, and not wanting truth to actually will out. In the
Mm.
end, it will happen. Uh, so Neptune, that that blurry fogginess is being lifted away, and maybe we don't like the truth that we find. There's
Mm.
that. Or maybe we find that, we were far better off than we thought we were.
Right.
Yeah, we won't know. It really does depend on where Neptune is in your own chart, and how it's kind of arranged with the other planets, and how it's going to affect you. But anyway, and he will be in forward motion from that day on, until we get into May and
Wow.
June.
Gee, that's a long. Now, Kamal has a question. Would you like that later on?
Oh, that's fine.
Kamal is asking a question for human design about digestion. My
Mm,
digestion is light, so how to figure it direct light or dark light?
I have no idea what you're asking. Small, sorry. Digestion to me, there is a direct connection to the solar plexus and digestion. It's not necessarily the stomach that we think of, like in astrology, the sign Cancer rules the stomach, but
Mhm,
Virgo is the sign that actually rules the digestive process and the assimilation of nutrients from the food that we eat. In
mhm,
human design, a lot of that has to do between the throat center and the solar plexus. And the throat center being really the center for metabolism, and how is what you're taking in able to be used to the good of your body or the good of living your life and getting the things done that you want to get done. Where the solar plexus is more about enoughness, and a lot of things like eating disorders, bulimia, anorexia, overeating, overweight, and all of that comes from, it's kind of odd, it comes from a feeling of not enough. And that's got its like beginnings in the solar plexus. And that's interesting as a theme because we move into 2023, March of 2023, where we really start that theme in a pretty big way: enoughness versus not enoughness. And what does it? It was funny because this afternoon I had some spare time before I came on with you, and I was listening to an Audible book that was written by Michelle Obama.
mhm.
And the whole thing she starts talking about is enoughness. And I went, that is so weird, right? That those are human design words, enoughness. And it really has to do with how we take in not only food, but life in general, and how we're able to metabolize that is the connection from the emotional center up to the throat. That is the long way around answering that question for you, Kamal. Hope that actually answered it for you. But if you need some more clarification, certainly let me know.
Well done. And of course, people can see your website up behind you, Janet,
Yep.
and there they can reach out to you. They can ask for a free chart.
Mhm. Right
So,
now, it's important for people to go to the website and buy their ticket to the Astrology of 2023, because I'm going to be breaking down all the most important things to know for 2023 in a webinar. And it's only $25. And then you also get a personalized 2023 report. And it will have all of the personalized information, interpretations, even for the transits that you will experience yourself in 2023, as well as the more global calendars. So it's a big deal. I do this once a year, and trust me when I say it's about, the last one I did was 85 pages. So
wow,
that's a lot of bringing together information for people. And I just like to do that as a gift, saying thank you for joining me in the webinar. But it, has a use for the whole of the year. How would it be to just be able to go to your little thing and see, oh, hey, look, this is my day today. And it might say something like, don't sign any new contracts today. And here you were getting ready to sign new contracts. And you can be like, oh, maybe I should wait till tomorrow.
right.
That's a little exaggerated, but literally it is a day by day kind of interpretation. So if you're wondering what the heck is going on, why is the day so crazy? And oh, I forgot to look at my astrology calendar. And you look and you see the numbers are red, and it's like, this is a red day. And the calendars look like this. Oh gosh, I have that here. If I sit back here, no. So you could kind of see it there. So
Right.
this is one that's based on where I live. And so that's why in signing up, I'll ask you, where do you live? Because then I can make sure it is timed to where you live. So for you, Annette, you live in what, Melbourne, is it, in Australia?
Yes.
So I
Yes.
would want to make sure that the transits are timed to where you live, right?
Mhm.
So anyway, that's a totally
That's
different subject, but something important coming up here on December 15th, by the way. And it's recorded if you can't join live. you get the recording, so no need to be there in person. But it does make it more fun if you can be there.
So we need to contact you prior to the 15th.
Right.
To be
Between,
involved.
yeah. Especially because Zoom is only going to allow 100 people. And right now it's okay. I'm about halfway there. So there's still room for people to sign up. And if you don't get to go live, because it's at noon here on the West Coast, I try to time it so it's, accessible from the biggest number of people. But a lot of people work during the day, so that's why it's recorded. And the slideshow and the recording are all sent to everybody who paid for the ticket. So
Fantastic. Well, at 7 a.m.
yeah.
here in Melbourne the following morning.
Mm. Well,
Oh,
not so
that's
bad.
doable.
That's doable.
Yeah.
But still, that's an early day. People are rushing around getting ready to go to work, perhaps, but it doesn't matter. You buy the ticket, you get the report, and you get your recording after it's done. So
Fantastic.
you didn't miss anything. And I do it early enough in December that you can, have access to that information ahead of time. So
very nice. I'm glad you mentioned that, Janet. Fabulous. And Kamal's very grateful. Wonderful anyways, he says to in response to what you had to say.
Okay, so that makes it sound like I did answer your question. But if you have more, to it, let me know. I think he might be talking to in traditional human design. They talk a lot about different things that I don't talk about. I didn't learn human design that way. And they do talk about digestion and different shadows and shades and colors and all of that. But that is not how I learned human design. So if that's what you're talking about, Kamal, I can't help you with that one. All right, shall we go on and see what else is going on for December?
Absolutely, yes.
So after our Neptune turns direct, the next big deal comes with Mercury moving into the sign of Capricorn, and that's on my December 6th. Although, let's see, December 6th, he moves in there at 2:08 p.m. my time. So that's going to be in the early morning of the next day for you. And Mercury moving into Capricorn is important. It tells us we're getting ready for the next retrograde because he is retrograde in Capricorn from December 29th until January 18th. But because he's going to be in retrograde, he's going to spend 2 months in the sign of Capricorn from December 6th to February 11th. So anytime we have a planet sitting in a sign for an extended period of time, we have more focus and emphasis on the things of that sign. And he will be in Capricorn, the sign ruled by Saturn. So on one hand, it really gives us the ability to tap into the work that needs to be done to enact our goals or to make a plan, to get things done. But on the other hand, Mercury will be in retrograde, which means we need to kind of slow things down a little bit so that we don't miss something. So we're having to, with Mercury and in Saturn's territory, we're having to both see the big picture, but also not miss the details, but not get so focused on the details that we miss the bigger picture. So we'll have 2 months of that period of time. Well, here's the other thing. Capricorn is an earth sign, and it's the first time in several years that Mercury will be in retrograde and in Capricorn for such a long period of time, and only in one sign. He had been, or in, one sign. He had been retrograding between this year between Earth and air. Last year it was air and Earth. And so this will be the first time he's just in Earth, which tells us it's time to take action, practical application of things, to do something, in other words, to choose to do, to actually be in your 3D body and actually do something about your goals or about what you want to do or what you want to create. So Venus will move into Capricorn just a few days later. And Capricorn then seems pretty darn important as we end the year because not only do we have the inner planets in that sign, but we also have Pluto finishing his transit through the sign of Capricorn and preparing to enter Aquarius in 2023, even if it is just for a few months before he retrogrades back into Capricorn. So we get this idea that there's been a lot of things that have happened since 2008 when Pluto moved into Capricorn, and a lot of destruction. In fact, I was just kind of enumerating them um, for a project I was working on, and we had the mortgage crisis, we had a banking crisis, we had pandemic, we had the USA Pluto return, we've had every kind of political upheaval you can imagine, right? Not just in the US, but all around the world.
Sure.
And that is kind of a hallmark of Pluto in Capricorn. He comes in and sort of starts destructing things, exposing weaknesses in the systems, Saturn type systems, Capricorn. And we've had this long time, this long transit of that level of deconstruction, if you will, leading to regeneration. So it seems funny to me, or perfectly apropos, that we would also end the last year of Pluto's transit through Capricorn with Mercury in Capricorn, Venus in Capricorn, the sun will end up in Capricorn, and really closing out that Capricorn energy, seeing what we've learned. In the end, it's all about reestablishing a foundation that's sustainable in every institution, in every asset or aspect of our lives. If it's not sustainable, it's likely crashed or it is showing a lot of wear and tear by now.
Is it unusual to have so many planets in the one area?
No, that happens periodically. So, we not long ago were talking about how we had so many planets. Our astrology charts looked very singular a few months back because all the planets seemed to be, congregating between Aries and Pisces and Taurus. Well, they've since spread out, but it's not unusual to have the inner planets following one another into a sign.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mercury and the sun are never more than 45 degrees away. So they always are going to end up in the same sign at some point in the transit.
Mm-hmm.
And Venus, same thing, although she has a wider uh, movement away from the sun. Uh, so those three are often in the same place around the same time. But when you have a major player in the sign, like Pluto, and then the inner planets move into that same sign, it now personalizes the, in this case, destruction of the wider collective influences. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So, like when we had a lot of planets in Neptune's territory, Pisces, back in February and March. I think it was February, March, and April, actually. It was really putting a lot of focus on all things Piscean. So we were dealing
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of victim and martyr kind of things, and spirituality and imagination, and um, that kind of blurry look, not knowing what the truth is, and all that kind of thing. So now, with planets like this in Capricorn, we're going to be dealing with the final vestiges of destruction so that we can start to rebuild. But our rebuilding needs to be simpler and more sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a break, like midweek, I picked a really good day to do that webinar because there's no major aspects happening that day that are going to be in my way. The moon will be in Virgo. Woohoo! Perfect for me. My own moon is in Virgo, very organized. Although right now it feels like I'm scattered, but it'll be very organized and able for people to pick up and understand. Woohoo! Did not plan it that way. It just works out.
So
So
isn't
that
that I'm sorry to cut across you. I love the way that we're guided. You've chosen that date supposedly by random, but it wasn't.
Well, I did. It was kind of random, actually. I thought, okay, what day in December do I want to do this? And I didn't want to go too close to Christmas. And I didn't want to do it too early where people are going to forget by the end of the year. What was it she said? So it came out the 15th, and I was like, okay, no worries. But I did not look at my own darn calendar to see what was going on that day. But it does turn out nicely. And in fact,
Mm.
that whole week is actually one of the sun is dancing with Saturn and with Neptune and the moon that week. So it turns out that that's an actually decent week. No big major changes going on. When we get into the, let's see, the one, two, third full week, so 3.5 weeks into the month, we end up with Jupiter, who is now in direct motion, moving back up to Aries. So we have new beginnings, new growth opportunities, new ways to initiate ourselves out into the world. And we had that a little bit of time earlier this year where Jupiter was in Aries. So he only moved from like 0 to 8 degrees of Aries and then went retrograde, moved backward through those 8 degrees and into Pisces again. And then just last week moved back to forward motion. I think it was about 28 degrees of Pisces. And by the third week of December, he is definitely back in Aries, a sign that starts to put forward motion back into play. But we have to be a little bit careful with that because the natural planet that rules Aries is Mars, and Mars is still retrograde himself, retrograde in the sign of Gemini until after January. So while we get that little kick energy that wants to push us off and into new territory or new projects or new ideas and inspiration, things are slowed down just a titch because the planet of action is actually in retrograde. So we still are in the reimagining phase or in the building phase of the next great ideas that we have. But we also have optimism that comes into play, right? It's a fire sign that he's in. So it has that passion attached to it, and it's bold energy. It's progressive energy. So where things might have been stalled, it may not move ahead fast speed, but you're going to be able to start to see incremental progress toward things. And then eventually in January, Mars turns back to forward motion and he'll speed his way through his Gemini 7 months. He's been there. Um, and, it's something interesting this morning I was talking about with everybody is that, Mars and Gemini has brought us, new words. Like you just made a new word at the beginning of the show today, globality, right?
Right.
I was like, oh yeah, that's perfect. And new words to describe our feelings, new words or new ways of expressing ourselves, or maybe getting to the truth of what we want to express or what we want to say, but without necessarily the emotion that can get caught up in saying our truth or in saying what really needs to be said. So that's been an interesting thing to watch happen over the last couple of weeks, especially since I've been just paying attention to words and what people have been saying and how they're saying what they're saying. And I find people are being cautious a little bit in how they say what they say, which is
Mm.
good. It's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jupiter moves into Aries the day before the winter solstice or the summer
Summer
solstice
solstice.
for you.
Yeah.
And it's like so upside down, right? Because we think of Capricorn as a winter, and you are definitely not. You're experiencing summer with Capricorn energy. So it's just always interesting to me how it changes from the hemispheres. Anyway, that means, for the season ahead, we're looking at, what are we building? What are we putting into play? It's a perfect time to think about um, what do we call those? New Year's resolutions. And
Oh, right.
right, which are kind of goals, the things that, we want to do for the year ahead. But not necessarily taking action on them, at least not that day. I mean, certainly winter solstice or summer solstice. We're looking at the season, not just at the day. But that day happens to also bring the sun into a square with Jupiter. So it's a day we can easily get carried away with ourselves and overindulge, over play our hand, overcommit our energy. So we do need to be careful right around that solstice that we don't overcommit. That's a big deal because we're going into the Christmas holidays where we're all stressed out anyway, or often, stressed out about Christmas gifts. Where are we going? What are we eating? All of that. Who are we visiting? And many families going around to multiple places finally, able to do that visiting kind of thing. And it's just stressful, right? It brings up stress. So try not to make any, big moves that day. Maybe wait until after the holidays, right? Bold new beginning will be there after the first of the year. I promise you. It's
Mm.
not going away. This isn't a, you know, buy today or lose the offer. It's just something that is like a kickoff to this more empowered, active energy. But it's like an engine. When you first start your engine in your car, the engine
Yes.
has to warm up, right? And you rev
Mhm.
up the gas a little bit and you warm your engine up and then you move. Um, that's kind of what this is energy is looking like, right? A little bit slower to start, but once it catches on and you get the momentum, then it starts to move.
Right.
But right, you just don't need the momentum at the holidays. That's all. Your work will be there tomorrow or the next day. And then let's see, as we get into the last week of December, we end up Mercury in retrograde, and that'll be on the 29th of December. And he will be in retrograde until January 18th. So, a few weeks, but not at Christmas time. A lot of times Mercury's been in retrograde at Christmas. So we end up
Mm,
with a lot of snarls in travel. And last year was a veritable nightmare with airlines canceling flights and
mm,
people getting COVID and not being pilots and they couldn't fly planes. They didn't have enough staff. And
mhm.
this year, hopefully, we don't have that kind of craziness. We will be in the shadow of Mercury's retrograde, but not in the retrograde itself until the 29th. So the New Year's will be in Mercury retrograde, but not Christmas. And then that is basically it for the month of December. Unless now we can look through human design and we can see, what some of the other themes will be. But that is really kind of the summary of the major aspect patterns for the month. It's kind of nice, right? I just looked at the clock. It's like 3:40, or 3:38. So 40 minutes worth of major transits, and that's it. Remember last month it was like, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this. Not so for December. December is really all about the blessings. It's really when in the bigger, the background energy. And partly, Annette, the blessings come in when we start to see the things in our lives in a context other than through victim lenses, right? When we see that there was a reason, right? Right now, we can't see what all those reasons are because we're just right in it. But as we get a little bit of space away from the things that have happened in our lives, both collectively, but also individually, we get some space. We also get some awareness, some consciousness around what's happened. And instead of, falling prey to the story, we then get to start to put the story into context and what did we learn and how have we gone on since? And even if it's a tragic kind of experience that we had, we can kind of I in the story so that
Mm,
the blessings come out of that. And that's the key is rather than, rationalizing in your mind that you somehow deserved what you got, or that, these kinds of things always happen to me because I never
mm,
get what I want. Turn the story upside down, right? And see, okay, well, what did you get protected from? What could possibly have been the reason why there was a delay in getting something or in not getting something, but getting something else in its place. So we get to look at all of the stories that we tell and then reframe them, if you will, in a way that shares blessings and not the disaster that was or what have you.
Very important point, Janet. Now,
Mhm.
Sarah has a question. Is it how does Neptune going direct affect my Neptune in Capricorn in my 11th house of Sagittarius or the first house?
Well, Neptune is in Pisces. So if your Neptune is in Sagittarius, is what I think I'm hearing you say, which means
Yes.
that Neptune turning direct at 22 degrees, I believe it um, is going to be in a squared relationship to Saturn or to Neptune in Sagittarius. So you might have some challenges. Maybe the truth that, maybe the truth hurts in this case. It depends on what degree your natal Neptune is at. It could be because it's in the 11th house of friendships and associations that something is revealed to you about something about a friend or someone in one of your networks or some group that you're involved with. Maybe there are some truths that have to be brought to bear, and those can be difficult. And when Neptune is in retrograde, it's harder to get to those truths because we're not clear. We don't have a clear path, but once Neptune turns direct, we have a better, clearer picture of what it is that's happening or what has happened. And maybe you can see how that might impact your friendships
Mm-hmm.
or your groups of people that you're around. I hope I read that right. So you said Neptune in Sag, which is always interesting, right? Because Neptune and Sagittarius, Neptune rules water. Um, Sagittarius is fire. So we always have the potential for steam when we get those
Ah,
two going together. But, Neptune and Jupiter as the ruling planet of Sagittarius, they sort of have an affinity for one another because Jupiter also co-rules Pisces with Neptune. So we might have some, optimism being restored, maybe some issues that did happen between you, Sarah, and some friends or associates or colleagues that you work with, and that gets mended. There's always that potential as well, right? It like dawns on everybody, this is not as bad as we thought, right? It's not as dire, or we can fix this, or we can work through this kind of thing. So I
well,
hope that answers your
Sarah's,
question.
right. Sarah says Neptune in Capricorn is my Sagittarius house.
Neptune in Capricorn is in your ninth house then?
Is in
Right?
in her Sagittarius house.
Okay, that can't be. Those are mutually
Oh, wait a
exclusive, right?
minute. I definitely feel like my groups of friends and people around me are struggling and in another mental and emotional state and trying to be a healthy, oh, and I guess she's trying to be a healthy friend.
Right. And I think you can be a healthy friend by listening, right? You don't have to try to solve anybody else's problems. You just be, a pair of ears for people to to listen to what your friends are saying, unless they specifically ask you for help in solving their problem or getting, insight into what's happening for them. Otherwise, just be the good listener. Just because you never know in this case, especially when a planet is wobbling around a change of direction, whether someone is going to take in what you have to say in the spirit in which you were saying it, or are they going to have misunderstood it in some way and or have it, twisted, your words twisted in their minds. So it's always best to wait till you're invited to say something, and in the meantime, just be there. Just be a good friend by being a good listener, right? So I'm really curious now. I almost need to look up Sarah's chart because now I have to get a picture. So let me see if it'll let me do this while because She's saying things that sound mutually exclusive of each other. I don't want that one. No. Astro.com. There we go. So hold on one second while I do that. Um,
Your
what in
knowledge is so extensive, Janet. I'm absolutely in awe of all that you know.
Oh, thank you. And I just realized that I don't have her under Raven's Eye, so I'm gonna have to go. I believe it's Kirkland is her last name. And yes, okay, there we go. So Sarah, just one second here while I pull up the chart. And I hope you don't mind if I do that. Um,
I sense that Sarah will be very grateful.
yeah, I think it would help us make sense of what it is she's saying. Okay, so now, and as I'm looking at your chart, your natal Neptune is in Capricorn in the 12th house, which is house of secret enemies, the house of the unconscious or subconscious. Um, and that sits right along with your natal destiny. And I think if you're looking at a chart that has the houses done in Placidus, it may actually be in the 11th house. But the way that I look at charts, I'm using whole signs. So everything that belongs in Capricorn is in the house that is starting in Capricorn. That puts your Uranus, North Node, Neptune, and Black Moon Lilith all in Capricorn, all in the 12th house. And to me, that is almost, I lost you, Annette. I know you're here somewhere. Zoom, there you are. Sometimes I feel like I'm just talking to, what page was I on? Um, you know, Capricorn is very much business oriented. Uh, it is a sign of doing duty, due diligence, uh, building on something. And it can also be karma that gets distributed when you don't do the things that you are meant to do. It is also very reputation oriented. And there can be some self sabotage that goes on in the 12th house, with especially a Neptune in the 12th house, where you can't see clearly anyway. And then you have it in the 12th house, which means that there's a lot of subconscious or unconscious patterns that are coming up, and they can play out with other people in your lives, but they can also play out within your own psyche or your own consciousness, subconsciousness, most likely. So the opportunity for you would be that with Neptune turning direct, maybe some things would be revealed about how it is that you've not been being your own best friend, how it is that perhaps you have been, literally playing, your own, playing down your strengths instead of playing them up. Your natal Neptune is at 14 degrees, and transiting Neptune is really at 22 degrees. So they're pretty far away from orb. That could have been a recurring theme for you over the last several months, is how do I get out of my own way? How do I how do I become my own best friend and not my own self-saboteur? Does that make sense?
Sarah is very grateful. She's
Yeah.
saying thank you.
Yeah. That's a tough combo to have there in that 12th house. But I would say that because of the nature of who you are, there's a lot of processing that goes on for you. So I think you have an elevated enough consciousness to be able to say, okay, I see this is happening. And what does that mean? Not necessarily to package it up and throw it out at your friends or at your colleagues or whomever and say, it's their fault. They did it. It's all them. But for you, you have the opportunity to look within and go, okay, what does this mean for me? Which is good. Good. That shows consciousness, awareness. Yeah. So
Indeed.
now, if we take a look real quickly, because the time is slipping by, if we take a look real quickly at the human design dates, there are no major changes going on in the planets. The sun and earth change once a week. But in November, it seemed like all the outer planets were changing dates, which kind of adds to feeling of confusion and change in the air. There's nothing changing for the entire month of December. Everything that's going to change has already changed, with the exception of Sun and Earth. And we start December out on December 4th. That's our first human design week of December. because the last one started at the end of November. And we start out with looking at our skills and what it is that we can do, our talents and our gifts, and kind of evaluating whether or not we're using them to their best advantage. And that's
Mhm.
always, it always, December, the first week or so of December brings this up to us. And I wonder if it's because of that we start to look backwards and see, like, how well did we do this year? Did we accomplish what we thought we would accomplish? And then that kind of then begins to lead us into, well, what would I want to do next year, kind of thing. So that's our first December week. And then we move into a week that brings up the issue of integrity. How do I be true to myself? Right? How do I walk my talk and talk my walk and stay on a path that leads toward integrity and not away from it? Ethics come up, and the idea of morals and living from values, right? And, if you state that you have this value over here, but then all of your actions are counter to that. In a time of year like this, it can be really karmic, and a lot of karmicness can come up, right? The payback stuff, right? That happens. When we get to the third week in December, it is the time of ideas. It is the mirror image of my own birthday. And I love that because I get to see myself in a different light. Like, your half birthday is always going to be the mirror image of who you were at birth. So the sun will be at the gate 11, the gate of ideas and the gate of being inspired by many different ideas, but literally needing to make sure you don't take action on all those ideas and start to spin, your wheels. But then also tuning in to the channels of divine wisdom that are always whispering to us. There's always the tapping into divine wisdom. So that's that middle week of December. And then as we get into the week of Christmas, we get into the seasons of love. Every time we come to a cross quarter, or we come to a seasonal shift, in this case, the solstice, we have what we call the turning of the gates of love. And we turn to the gate of love, self-love, on December 20th. And we are there through Christmas. And then at the earth, we are at the gate of the love of humanity, or compassion. So we have compassion and self-love and compassion, love for our fellow human beings, but it is grounded in love for ourselves during that week. And then we end the month of December in the gate of joy and bliss
Mm.
and stress free. That's not the word, stillness, stillness and harmony. So December always has a good sort of array of different energies for us to experience. And this year is no exception. It's some good energy to end this year, but we always do.
And ending on a lovely high note.
Right. And that high note carrying forward into January because of where the nodes shifted on November 27th. And that moving us into the gates of blessing. The other part of that, while we've moved into the gate of blessings for the north node, the south node is sitting at a gate where we tend to hold on to the past. So the challenge is to read the story of the past with new eyes, right? With a new interpretation that
Mhm.
then helps us to see how we can be forgiven, and we can forgive and be forgiven. We can apply gratitude and love, and we can turn the story of humanity upside down, right? We can turn it on a dime, right? With these, this time period that we've been living through is very equatable to the dark ages, the real dark ages, back in what, the 11 and 1200s.
Mhm.
As the astrology of that time and the astrology of this time has been very similar. But we can turn that story on its head, unlike what the people then could do, right? They didn't have that consciousness. They didn't have that Neptune consciousness of seeing things from a higher perspective. And we have that consciousness. So we can see the stories And we don't have to live the story as if it is all there is, right? We can see the story and we can thank the story and we can change the story. We don't have to be the story. So that's what I would encourage all of us as we move out of this year into the next one. How do you want to position the experiences you've had for the year? Do you want to tell a story of I didn't get, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't able to do, or I was able to do these things that are leading me to where I want to go, kind of thing. You tell the story. Yeah. And that's all I have.
Beautiful. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to end the year. So much to look forward to, and to know that, yes, how can we be the best that we can be, to be kind to ourselves, to be kind to others, and stay in the happy space.
Right. Remember, we're going through the gate of self-love at, Christmas time. So you have to factor yourself in to love, right? You can't just, how can you fully love and accept another if you can't fully love and accept yourself? It brings conditions to the relationships that you're in. So you have to afford yourself unconditional love so that you can actually give that to other people as well and receive it from others as well. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, Janice, I'd like to wish you a very happy December. May you have a lovely, lovely time with your family.
Thank you.
You will be speaking to your audience through December. I'm going to be talking to our audience through December, but we won't be necessarily talking together until we start, my goodness me, the beginning of February. I always love the way that you and I start my year off because it's a great way of looking at what we can expect in 2023.
Yeah, so we won't be on air together until February. Is that right? I don't have 2021 or 20 going backwards. Oh, here's my 2023. So, yes, we will. So, you're not doing a show in January. So, we
No.
won't meet until February 1.
Yes.
Yeah, you're February 2nd, my February 1.
Oh, well,
Awesome.
there you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm sure I'll have a lot to share at that point in time.
Absolutely. Just think,
Yeah.
we'll be a month into 2023. You'll have
Right.
snow all around you.
You'll have flowers all around you. Wait a minute, don't wish snow on us.
Oh, there's just something very picturesque of
Indeed.
snow scenes, because we certainly don't get them in Melbourne, and they are
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah, we did. We got some snow, like I said the other day, but it was just minuscule. But, it's only November, so there's plenty. I'm sure Sarah probably got snow. Where she lives, it's much snowier than it is on the west side of the mountains.
Right.
Yeah. So Merry
See,
Christmas and happy holidays to you too, Annette. Hopefully you have a wonderful time enjoying your
thank you.
family and friends.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, singing carols. It's a favorite
Oh,
time of the year for me. I really enjoy it.
yeah.
So
Our family's actually getting together on Christmas Eve this year. Last year we met like a week before because we were all headed to Disneyland for Christmas. So
nice.
we had our Christmas early. So this year it's actually going to be on time. Kind of a new fun thing to do. Let's meet on the right day. Oh, so
Yeah, the
anyway.
fact that we can be with family and friends
Mm,
is the important part. I think sometimes we can get a little hung up on the fact that, oh, it has to be on a particular day. No, it doesn't. It's the fact that we can do it.
yeah,
Is
we
the
can do it. We've always had to accommodate people that worked in retail. So for
Mhm.
Thanksgiving, and Christmas, it can be kind of crazy for them. Most of them couldn't get the 24th off
Mm.
because that's like the last push for Christmas presents and what have you. So it made sense to do it either earlier or, even waiting till Christmas Day or even the day after Christmas to have our Christmas. This year we don't have to do that. Yeah.
Do what we have to do. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us, especially Sarah and Kamal, who made contributions to the show. We always value that. And thank you to our audience, wherever you are, whenever you happen to watch this. I trust that you gain something from it. Much love. Thank you, Janet.
Love and
Thank
blessings
you,
to everyone.
audience. I will see you again next week. And Janet, wow, 2023. Very exciting. Just before I go, may I remind everybody that these shows should never replace your legal, medical, nor professional advice, nor your own sound judgment. Much love, everybody. Make the most
Bye.
of it.